To discuss the state of educational systems around the world, we're joined now by Michael Horn in the U.S. city of Philadelphia. He's co-founder of the Clayton Christensen Institute. It's a think tank focusing on redefining the way issues like education are addressed. As we mentioned, the OECD recently came out with these rankings, the top secondary schools in the world based on math and science scores. All of the top 5 are from Asia, with the understanding that the educational systems in each location may be slightly different. What similarities do they share overall, would you say?
Yeah, when you go to these countries, you actually see a striking similarity, which is it's not necessarily the schools themselves that are driving a lot of these results, but actually that the parents and the families spend quite a bit of money and time in after-school programs, private after-school programs where they pay for tutoring to really drive educational results. And there's a very strong drive within the families and then this tutoring market to help students succeed almost at any cost whatsoever, which is reflected in these test scores and these international tests.
Well, let me ask you this. What are the major overall differences between Eastern and Western educational systems when it comes to curriculum? I know we're talking about the influence of parents and how much they push the agenda, so to speak, but what about curriculum and how that's different?
Yeah, you tend to see much more nationalized curriculums in Asia than sometimes that you do in the West. And you also see a lot more emphasis on rote-based learning and really driving toward achieving on these tests. And there's pluses and minuses, of course, to that approach. The pluses you see in great skill attainment in these Asian countries. Sometimes people complain that though you see less creativity in these countries as well, and less problem-solving ability compared to, say, the counterparts in the United States.
When it comes to higher education, we were just talking about Russia. It's planning to close about 40% of its universities by the end of next year. The idea is to improve the quality of education in the country. Do you see this thinning out or weeding out process in other nations as well?
So it's different in different nations. Russia is the most dramatic example we're seeing right now, with 40% being a huge number. In the United States, we're also seeing that there's going to be a reduction, and that reduction has already started to occur, of many institutions closing over the next several years. That's going to be a more organic process, I suspect, than sort of the centralized dictate that you had out of Russia around this. But you're also contrasting this with places like India that say they need to literally bring 150 new institutions, say, online in the next several years to meet burgeoning demand for seats in universities. So it's not even right now across the world, but in many developed countries like Russia, like the United States, you're going to see a trend, I think, toward consolidation or some institutions just going out of business completely.
You know, I was talking to somebody who's in the educational field this weekend, and they were talking about how you see a lot of students from China coming to the United States universities, but you really haven't seen that much of it vice versa, and that there really needs to be a push to have American students go over to Asia as well. Do you see that as something that might happen in the near future, more of that?
I think you will. I think, you know, right now, the perception worldwide is that the best universities are in the United States, but I don't think that'll be a static picture. You know, if we went back 100 years ago, the top universities would have all been in Germany. That's not the case now, according to perception. And I think you're going to start to see more and more Chinese universities rise in perception. And out of that is more people want to understand China, how you do business in China, the relationships and the language that are so important, and a deeper understanding of that, of the culture. I think you'll see more of a push or interest, if not going full-time there, at least studying a year or two. And you're starting to see programs like the Minerva Project in the United States, which is really fancies itself as a global university. Think about how do we take students to different destinations around the world, and I suspect China will be high on that list.
Well, it's certainly a plus, I would think, for all of those students kind of expanding their horizons in a sense. Michael Horn joining us from Philadelphia. Thanks so much.